दादा शाम शरणं मम दादा शाम शरणं मम दादा शाम शरणं मम सांसों की माला में सिमरूं मैं तेरा नाम दादा श्याम दादा श्याम सांसों की माला में सिमरूं मैं तेरा नाम दादा श्याम दादा श्याम.
And I feel grateful to every one of you, my very dear brothers and sisters, you who have gathered together this evening to listen to my broken words and to give me the blessings of your brave, beautiful hearts. I feel grateful to every one of you. The topic for this evening's talk, as you all know, is kill fear before fear kills you. A friend has objected to the use of the word kill in the title. He writes, I am confident that this word kill has got into the title through oversight. Though unintended, I am sure it is a word portraying violence, and Sadhu Vaswani Mission has been known to the public as an institute propagating compassion. He writes further, I believe that all of us shall love to abstain from violence, whether in thought, word, or action. May I request you to give your valuable thought to the matter. My friends, in this connection, may I mention that the word kill has many meanings. It has many connotations. We have the oft used phrase, killing with kindness. I recall a moving incident in the life of Abraham Lincoln, the saintly President of the United States. They produced a man before him and said, he is a traitor. He is an enemy of the country. He must be killed. And Lincoln said, the best way to kill an enemy is to make him a friend. I will make him a friend. The man was pardoned. Of Gautama Buddha, the great prophet of non-violence, the great prophet of Ahimsa, we are told that on one occasion he said to his disciples, O bhikkhus, go and teach the people not to kill innocent animals, but to kill only the animal of desire that is within them. So friends, let us not kill the word kill altogether. Let us give it a chance to live. The topic for this evening's talk, as I said, as you all know, is kill fear before fear kills you. It is a fear-ridden world in which we live. There is not a living soul on earth who at some time or the other hasn't experienced what it is to be afraid. Surely everyone present here knows what it is to be afraid. There are different types of fear. There is the fear of the dark. There is the fear of the unknown. There is the fear of making two ends meet together, month after month. There is the fear of losing a job. There is the fear of not being able to earn the next promotion. There is the fear of facing interviews. I recall how some time ago, a first-class university graduate met me and said to me, I was called for an interview As soon as I entered the hall where the interview was to take place, I do not know what happened to me. Suddenly, I found that my mind had turned blank. A number of questions were put to me, simple questions, and yet I do not know why I was unable to answer them. I could not answer a single question. When the interview was over and I came out of the hall, all those answers came back to me. Why did such a thing happen to me? What could be the reason? The reason, my friends, was that whenever we are afraid of anything, all our mental faculties are affected. Our mind turns blank. This is an experience which many have on different occasions. There are people who stand in front of the podium ready to address a gathering. But as soon as they face the microphone, something happens to them, their mind goes blank. We are told that at a meeting which was to be addressed by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the then Prime Minister of India, a young man rose to greet him. The young man began his speech with the words, "Shakespeare has said," and came to a stop. He forgot Shakespeare's quote with which he had to start his maiden speech. He said again, "Shakespeare has said," and again, "Shakespeare has said." He could proceed no further. And Jawaharlal Nehru got up and, standing in front of the mic, said, "Young man, Shakespeare has said that you should hand over the mic to me." There are, as I said, different types of fear, 101 types of fear. There are so many who live in fear of facing people, especially those who are their social superiors. There are some who are afraid of facing their bosses in the office. There are some who are even afraid of their wives. And there are women, many of them, who are afraid of their husbands, and because of this fear, they even speak a number of lies. Women are afraid of many things. They will forgive me if I say so. I read concerning a dinner party. Suddenly at the dinner party, a lizard appeared on the wall. Some of the women began to shriek, and 3 of them actually swooned. They fainted. They dropped down. Just think of it. A lizard is such a tiny creature, but women are afraid of tiny creatures. They are afraid of cockroaches, and in fear, they go and kill them. Cockroaches love life as much as we do. We must not kill them. But fear makes us do many things which must not be done. There are parents who are afraid of their children. They are afraid of saying no to them. One day, I heard the following conversation take place between a daughter and her mother. The daughter said to the mother, "Mummy, may I go out this evening with my boyfriend?" And the mother said, "No, my child." And the daughter asked, "Mummy, why? May I not go out with my boyfriend? Do you not trust me?" And the mother said, "My child, I trust you." "Then do you not trust my boyfriend?" asked the daughter. And the mother answered, "I trust him also, my child." "Then why is it that you will not let us go out?" And the mother said, "My child, I trust you, and I trust your boyfriend, but I don't trust the 2 of you together." Therefore, that is the reason that I will not permit you to go out together. There are many types of fear. It is a fear-ridden world in which we live. And as George Bernard Shaw has said, in this world there is always danger for those who are afraid of it. There is an Indian fable which tells us that a mouse was in constant distress of its fear of the cat. This magician turned the mouse into a cat. Immediately it became afraid of the dog. So the magician turned it into a dog. Immediately it began to fear the tiger. So the magician turned it into a tiger. Immediately it began to fear the hunter. Then the magician said, "Be a mouse again. You have only the heart of a mouse, and I cannot help you." Yes, there are, as I said, many types of fear. And let us never forget that whenever we are excessively, whenever we are inordinately afraid of something, we are, through our own fear, attracting that thing to ourselves. We have the words in the Bible, "That of which I was excessively afraid has come upon me." That of which I was excessively afraid has come upon me. Whenever I am afraid of anything, I am only drawing that thing to myself. Am I excessively afraid of getting a heart attack? Do I keep on reminding myself again and again that my father died of heart failure and that my elder brother became a victim of heart failure? Every time that I get a twitch of pain in the region of the heart, or every time that my left arm feels heavy, do I feel that I have had a heart attack? Then remember, sure as the sun rises in the east, I am only attracting, I am only drawing a heart attack to myself. Fear is a magnet which draws to itself that of which we are afraid. Therefore, be not afraid of anything. My friends, do you know the literal, the radical, the root meaning of the word fear? The word fear is very close to the word worry. It is out of fear that we have all the worries that we have to face. And the word worry is derived from an old Anglo-Saxon word which means to choke, to strangle. That is just what fear does to you. Fear chokes you. Fear strangles you. Some time ago, I was given a shirt to wear, the collar of which was very tight. When I wore it, I felt as though I was being choked all the time. And that is what fear does to us. Suppose a man were to place his fingers around your neck and he was to press them as hard as he could, cutting off your air supply. That is what you are doing to yourself when you are afraid of something. You are choking yourself. You are strangling yourself. You are choking your creative life. You are strangling your soul. An eminent doctor said some years ago, the incidence of ulcers goes up and down with the stock market. If the shares go up or the shares go down, if the stocks go up or the stocks go down, so many get ulcers. Why? Because whenever we are afraid of something, whenever we have excessive worry or anxiety, we generate a large quantity of acid, hydrochloric acid. We suffer from hyperacidity. Fear leads to hyperacidity, and hyperacidity produces ulcers. The effect of fear, the psychological effect of fear, has been studied by a number of doctors. They insert a tube through the nose It is known as the Ryle's tube. The tube goes right into the stomach, and with the help of this tube, the doctors are able to study the effect of fear on an individual. There was a man, he worked in an office. By his side was his assistant. One day, as the assistant attended to his work, suddenly, without a warning, he dropped down dead. This created a fear in the heart of the boss. He said to himself, what if such a thing happened to me? It happened to my assistant. I saw it with my own eyes. What if it happened to me? He kept on nurturing the fear within himself. And when the doctors examined him, when they examined the secretions that were produced in his stomach, they found that they contained double the quantity of normal acid. The doctors examined another man, and they found that every time his wife's name was mentioned, there was a rush of hydrochloric acid in his stomach. This effect of fear is not restricted merely to human beings. It extends also to animals. We are told that in the presence of fierce dogs, cows will not yield milk. And if they do yield milk, and if that milk is given to babies or to calves, it produces colic. I do not have the time. Otherwise, I would pass on to you instances to indicate to you that the effect of fear extends even to plants, to the vegetable kingdom, to trees, to flowers. But my time has traveled fast, and maybe some of you may have developed the fear that if I continue to speak to you on the effects of fear, I may not have the time to tell you how to kill fear. The topic of this evening's talk is kill fear before fear kills you. What may we do to kill fear? So let me pass on to you some practical suggestions. If I have the time, I would wish to pass on to you 7 practical suggestions on how to be free from fear. 7 practical suggestions. What are they? The very first practical suggestion is, you must realize once and for all that there is nothing which is as bad as fear itself. Nothing which is as bad as fear itself. You must realize that being afraid is the worst thing that can happen to you. Fear is the worst thing in the world. You may be afraid of many things in the world, but they are not as bad as fear itself. The fear that comes and grips you and captures your heart. Therefore, you must always keep away from fear. I am reminded of an incident in the life of Sadhu Vaswani. This happened during the days of partition. Sadhu Vaswani continued to live in Sindh, which became a part of Pakistan, even though many of his friends and compatriots left Sindh and came to India. So many poor people were left behind, and Sadhu Vaswani said, it is my duty to be by their side. Until the last man who wishes to leave Sindh has left this country, I must not leave it. He continued to stay there for 15 months after the partition took place. Every evening we used to have our satsang, our spiritual assembly, as we continue to have here. At the close of the satsang, Kana Prasad was distributed among the congregation. This happened every evening, as a matter of course. On the day Muhammad Ali Jinnah passed away, we had our usual satsang. In the evening, at the close of the satsang, Kana Prasad was distributed. As the Kana Prasad was being distributed, a few Mahajirans refugees who had migrated to Sindh from Assam and from Bihar, who were not aware of the good work that Sadhu Vaswani was doing. A few Mahajans happened to pass by the satsang center. They found Kana Prasad being distributed. They called Kana Prasad Halwa, and they said, our great leader, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, has died, and in this Hindu satsang center, headed by Sadhu Vaswani, they are distributing halwa. They are rejoicing over the death of our beloved leader. That night, at a meeting of about 30,000 Mahajans, refugees who had migrated, as I said, from India to Sindh, the lie was spread that at the time of Mr. Jinnah's death, halwa was distributed at Sadhu Vaswani's satsang, and the people rejoiced. This incensed the feeling of the Muslim mob. Some of those present at the meeting were reported to have declared with pistols in their hands, Sadhu Vaswani shall not live. The editor of the daily newspaper came to me the next day and narrated the whole incident. It is for me to warn you, he said. It is for you to see that Sadhu Vaswani does not move out for a few days. Every evening Sadhu Vaswani went out for a walk. That evening I related to him what had been told to me. I requested him that you keep indoors for a few days until matters cool down. Sadhu Vaswani appeared unconcerned. He smiled and said, this evening I was feeling a bit tired and I had half a mind not to go out on my usual evening walk. But after what you have told me, I must go out for a stroll. He took up his shawl on his shoulders and he moved out. I followed him, and on the way he said to me, my child, remember one thing. Life is a gift of God. What He hath given, only He can take away. When it be His will, this body will drop down. When that moment arrives, no power on earth can keep me back. Until the hour hath come, no pistol shot can touch a single hair of my head. Blessed be His name. Blessed be His name. How true it is that until the hour hath come, no pistol shot can touch a hair of our heads. Yet we live in constant fear of death. It was Shakespeare who said, cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once. Why must we fear? When we fear, we do incalculable harm to ourselves. When we fear, our entire system gets paralyzed. May I, in this connection, pass on to you an incident of my own boyhood days. One dark night, I returned quite late to my home. The lights were not burning. I felt thirsty. In the dark, I filled a glass of water from the earthenware pitcher. Even as I drank it, I felt something wriggling in the glass. I felt it was a snake. And the very thought that I had taken poisoned water filled me with fear. It paralyzed my body, and I dropped down and I began to cry, I am dying, I am dying, I am dying. My piteous cry brought the members of the family close to where I was lying flat on the ground. They inquired, what has happened to you? Why do you say that you are dying? I told them that I had taken water in which a snake was wriggling. I added the poison has circulated throughout the system, and I will be alive only a few minutes longer. I want to say goodbye to every one of you and forgive me for anything that I have done which I should not have done. And so it went on. My mother immediately asked one of my brothers to call a doctor. Before the doctor could arrive, someone came bringing an electric torch. He looked into the glass of water and exclaimed, "There is no snake in the water, it is only a rubber band." In truth, it was a rubber band that wriggled in the water. I had mistaken it for a snake. When I realized it was only a rubber band, I do not know from where the energy rushed into my body. And I got up and said, "Who says I am dying? I am very much alive." But this is what fear does to us. It saps our strength. It paralyzes our entire system. So let us not be afraid of anything, not even of death. On an earlier occasion, I had given you the story of a man who traveled on a lonely road and who was set upon by bandits who beat him up severely and robbed him of all his possessions. They bound his hands and feet and dragged him into the dark depths of a forest. Here they gagged him and blindfolded him and tied him to a rope and suspended him from a height. "You are now hanging over the brink of a giddy precipice," they told him. "The moment you let go of this rope, you will be dashed to pieces on the rocks below." And with those words, they left him. He was filled with terror at the impending doom. He clung on for dear life to the rope, which swung hither and thither. He gave in to despair. As his grip failed, he dropped down, barely 6 inches, and landed on the comforting solidity of Mother Earth. The grass was soft and moist to his touch, and the earth smelled clean and refreshing. Quickly, he untied his blindfold. The robbers had played a cruel trick on him and left him hanging in fear so that they could make good their escape. When he let go, he was not letting go of his life, he was letting go only of his fear. An Arabic folk tale tells us that a wise old man, traveling on the desert road to Baghdad, met the figure of pestilence, the figure of cholera, hurrying ahead of him. "Why are you in such a haste to reach Baghdad?" asked the old man. And pestilence answered, "I am due to take 5,000 lives in the city when the crowds gather together for Hajj." Later, on the return journey, they chanced to meet again. "You lied to me," said the old man reproachfully. "You said you would take 5,000 lives, but you took away 10,000 instead." "I did not do it," pestilence swore. "I took 5,000 and not one more. It was fear who killed the rest." So let us kill fear before fear kills us. The first practical suggestion is realize once and for all that nothing is as bad as fear itself. This leads us to the second practical suggestion. The second practical suggestion is, having been convinced that nothing is as bad as fear itself, let us cultivate the will to be free from fear. The will to be free from fear. Freedom from fear is achieved through perseverance, through tenacity, and through sheer willpower. So let me tell you the story of 2 frogs that fell into a bucket of cream. At first they were bemused but unafraid. Valiantly they tried their best to get out of the sticky fluid by climbing up the side of the slippery bucket, but it was impossible. When they climbed 8 inches, They slipped back by 10 inches. One of the frogs panicked. "We will never be able to make it out of here alive," he sobbed. "I give up. I can't take it anymore." In his fear and frustration, he got drowned in the cream. The other frog was resolute and determined. "I shan't be afraid," he told himself. "I shall find my way out. I shall live." He went on and on, kicking with his back legs and climbing with his front legs. He fell back every time, but did not give up his efforts. Suddenly he found that he hit something hard. As he fell back on the cream, he turned to see what it was and discovered to his surprise that his kicking had churned up a sizable lump of butter. Quickly he jumped on top of it and leaped out to safety. A Chinese proverb tells us, "The man who dislodged the mountain began by carrying away small stones." How true. What is required is that we must not be daunted by the circumstances around us and the obstacles that we think lie ahead of us. Therefore, cultivate the will to be unafraid. There's a wonderful Zen story that tells us about the time of the civil war in Korea. A certain general marched his troops through province after province, killing whoever stood in his way, overcoming every obstacle in his path. As his troops advanced in a certain town, the people abandoned their homes and fled into the mountains. When the general arrived, he found the town empty. Nevertheless, he ordered his soldiers to search every nook and corner. Some of them came back to report that there was only one person who remained in the town. He was a Zen priest who was seated in a small temple meditating. Immediately, the general rushed to the temple. He walked in and found the priest just coming out of his meditation, calm and serene. He pulled out his sword and flashed it before the monk and said, "Tremble at my sight. You hapless soul, do you know who I am? I am the one who can run a sword through you without batting an eye." Without so much as blinking, the Zen master looked at him and replied calmly, "And I, sir, am one who can be run through by your sword without batting an eye." The general, on hearing this, bowed and left. He had come face to face with a man who had cultivated the will to be free from fear. And now let us proceed to practical suggestion number 3. Practical suggestion number 3 is, never forget that fear is a form of atheism. Fear is a form of atheism. If you are afraid of anything, you are an atheist. There are two forces in the world. There is the force of fear. It is a tremendous force. It is a mighty force. It is a terrific force. But there is only one other force that is greater than this force. It is the force of faith. And if you do not have faith, you are an atheist. You may be visiting the temple every day. You may be going to the mosque, to the church every day. You may be reading long, unending passages from the scripture every day. You may be visiting distant places of pilgrimage from time to time. But if you do not believe that God is by you, beside you, with you, within you, that He is taking care of you, that He is protecting you, that He is inspiring you, that He is leading you on, If you do not have this faith, then you are no better than an atheist. There are so many people who will tell you that there are millions upon millions of human beings, over 6 billion human beings inhabiting this earth. How can God be concerned with the insignificant details of the lives of millions who pray to Him? But this is unfaith. This is atheism. God is our Father. God is our mother. Even as a father or mother is interested in every little thing concerning his or her children, even so God is interested in every little detail of our lives. All we have to do is to hand ourselves over in childlike trust to the Lord, and we will lack nothing. If we do not have this trust, we are no better than atheists. Therefore, as I said, fear is a form of atheism, for fear is unfaith. An atheist French scientist was crossing the Sahara Desert with the help of an Arab guide. The Arab was a pious man who believed in God, who believed in prayer. Whenever a sandstorm arose in the desert and they were unsure of the way, the Arab would bow down and pray to God for guidance. This annoyed the scientist. Who do you think you are talking to? He asked the Arab contemptuously. How do you know there is a God? Solemnly, the Arab answered, how would you know whether a man passed by your tent at night? Why, by his footprints on the sand, said the atheist. To this the Arab said, I see God's footprints in the sun, the moon, and the stars. They proclaim His greatness and His power. His presence keeps me from fear. Martin Luther, you have heard his name. He was one of the founders of the Protestant Church. He had to face a series of terrible difficulties and dangers because he was up against the greatest power of those days, the power of the Pope. One day, Martin Luther's wife found him in a dark mood of despair, in a dark mood of depression. She was an intelligent woman who believed in the providence of God. Finding her husband deep in despair, she wore dark clothes and appeared before him. Why these dark clothes? Asked Martin Luther. The wife quietly answered, don't you know he is dead? Who is dead? Asked Martin Luther. God, answered the wife. How can you say that? Admonished the Christian leader. How can God die? And the wife said, if God is not dead, what reason do you have to be so sad and downcast? Martin Luther immediately realized his mistake, put a smile on his face and said, yes, to the devil belongs to be sad. There is a touching story told us concerning the great American slave orator, Frederick Douglass. One day when things looked dark for his race, he was a black man. He said in a mournful speech, the white man is against us. Governments are against us. The spirit of the times is against us. I see no hope for the colored race. I am full of sadness and fear. Just then, a poor old colored woman rose in the audience and said, Frederick, is God dead? Often many of us believe as though God is dead. But let us proceed to the next practical suggestion. Practical suggestion number 4. Practical suggestion number 4. Practical suggestion number 3 is fear is born of unfaith, therefore fear is a form of atheism. Practical suggestion number 4 is always remember that with God all things are possible. You must have this faith, this living, this burning faith that for God nothing is impossible. What is impossible for man is possible for God. Man's extremity is God's opportunity. Do you find yourself at a dead end, knowing not which way to turn? Are you suffering from a disease which the doctors have declared as incurable? Are you standing on the verge of a financial crisis, on the verge of bankruptcy with no one to help you out? Do you have a personal relationship problem which, in spite of your best efforts, you are unable to solve? Turn it over to God. Hand it over to God. When such problems are handed over to God, solutions are easily found. For God, nothing is impossible. Absolutely nothing. All we have to do is to say to God, we are willing to do as thou wilt. We have to provide the willingness, and God provides the power. When willingness, human willingness, is coupled with divine power, there is nothing that cannot be achieved. Fear of death is one of the most dreaded things that can affect people. The best way to overcome fear of death is through faith in God. A holy man lay on his deathbed as his end drew near. His devoted disciple began to sob bitterly, saying, Master, Master, tarry a while longer with us in this land of the living. The holy man smiled and said, I am still in the land of dying, but I hope to be soon in the land of eternal life. He continued, it matters little whether one lives or dies. If I die, I shall be with God. If I live, God will be with me. Let me tell you an incident from the life of a brave man. Several years ago, a brave man attempted a near impossible feat across the Niagara Falls. If some of you have seen the Niagara Falls, you will be able to understand the story better. This man had a strong wire stretched above the roaring falls, and he announced that he would walk across the tightrope from the American to the Canadian side. People were electrified by the news of this death-defying feat and gathered in large numbers on the appointed day to watch the thrilling display. As they held their breath in awe, the man performed the daring stunt with cool, calm deliberation. The crowds cheered wildly. But the show was not at an end. The performer called for a wheelbarrow with grooved wheel and began to push it across the suspended wire. Just imagine. As this breathtaking performance concluded, a thunderous applause broke out on both sides of the Niagara. A little boy was cheering loudly on the bank as the performer crossed over. The performer asked him, "Do you believe that I can put you in this wheelbarrow and take you across to the other side?" "I'm sure you can, mister," said the boy quickly. "Come along then and get into the wheelbarrow," the man invited. "Let us show these people how brave you are and how much you trust me." The boy believed in the tightrope walker, but in reality he had not trusted him enough to accompany him across the falls. So many of us are like this boy. We say our prayers. We profess faith in the Lord. We call upon Him to pilot us safely across the Sansar Sagar to the other shore. But we fail the test of faith during crucial moments and give in to doubt and despair. What we need is the kind of faith that will never fail us. The kind of faith that makes us realize that all things are possible to those who believe in His mercy and goodness. And now we come to the fifth practical suggestion. The fifth practical suggestion is the power of God flows out of God in an endless, ceaseless stream. We should be ready to receive it. We should be ready to receive it. Therefore, the fifth practical suggestion is be relaxed. Be relaxed at all times. Learn to relax in God's presence so that you can receive His power. As I said, when human willingness is coupled with divine power, there is nothing that we cannot achieve. Therefore, be relaxed. There are many ways of being relaxed. I don't have the time today, otherwise I will speak to you on at least one way of relaxing completely. We need to be relaxed in body. We need to be relaxed in mind. We need to be relaxed in will. We need to be relaxed in feelings. We need to be relaxed in emotions. This is very necessary if you wish to move out of fear into fearlessness. Be relaxed. We are so tensed up. Look at the way we sit. Look at the way we stand. Look at the way we do our daily work. We are full of tension. Our muscles are all tightened up. I was at a meeting when an announcement was made that a car which bore a particular number had been parked, but the engine of the car kept on working. The driver of the car had forgotten to switch, to turn the switch off. I looked at my brothers and sisters who were sitting in front of me at the meeting, which was held in Mumbai. Mumbai, as you may know, is a place of tension. I looked at my brothers and sisters in front of me, and I said to myself, these brothers and sisters are sitting here, but many of them are like cars which have been parked, but their engines are still working. Their engines are still working. There is so much of tension that we carry all the time with ourselves, and because of this tension, we are unable to receive the power of God that fain would flow in and through us, the power with the help of which the impossible can be achieved. The sixth practical suggestion, what is it? The sixth practical suggestion is, let us not worry about what we imagine may happen tomorrow. Let us not worry about what we imagine may happen tomorrow. Man is constantly given to worrying about the future. What does this anxiety do for us? It may not empty our tomorrows of sorrow, but it will certainly empty our today of its strength. And if the future should bring problems with it, this fear makes you unfit to cope with these problems. Therefore, it has been said, worrying about the future is very much like a rocking chair. It will keep on moving, but it will take you nowhere. It will not get you anywhere. Such needless fear is like the advance interest that you pay on troubles that may never come your way. I tell the people again and again, you should not make yourself miserable by thinking of the past or of the future. The past is a cancelled check. The future is a promissory note. The present is the only cash in hand. We must use it wisely and well. Make the most of the here and the now. Give your best to the present. Concentrate on the task you are doing. Let all your energy and attention be focused on the present moment. And when you follow this simple suggestion, you will find yourself free from fear and tension. I wonder if you have heard the name of J. Arthur Rank. At one time, he was regarded as the American movie magnate. He had his own special way of dealing with his fears about the future. He simply decided that every Wednesday would be his worrying day. Whenever any thought of the future or fear of the future entered his mind, he would write it on a piece of paper and put it in a worry box, then forget all about it. The worry box would be opened on Wednesday, and he would find that many of his worries and fears had been dissolved by then. There is no disputing the fact that worrying about the future does more damage to those who worry rather than the actual things that they fear about. And so, wise men tell us, worry does not empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It only empties today of its strength. It has been proven in most cases that over 90% of the things people worry about never actually happen. What a waste of mental and emotional energy. May I tell you of a text which I found on a New Year's greeting card which was sent to me several months ago. Those were the words written on the card. I said to the man at the gate of the year, give me a light so that I may trade safely into the unknown. And this man replied, go out into the darkness and put your hand into the hand of God. That shall be to you better than light and safer than a known way. So let me repeat to you, walk with God today and trust Him for the morrow. And now we come to the final, the seventh practical suggestion. The seventh practical suggestion is, if you wish to kill fear, go out of your way to bring help and comfort to others. Look around you, my friends, and you find, don't you, that the world is sad, the world is broken, the world is torn with tragedy, the world is smitten with suffering. Living in such a world, it is the duty of every one of us to bring joy into the joyless lives of some. And in the measure in which we do so, in that measure we find that our own life is filled with happiness. Our own life is filled with fearlessness. Did I tell you of the king of Ratnapuri? He was dying, he was on his deathbed. He had no children, no issues, and therefore no successor to his throne. His chancellor, a wise and learned man, advised the king to choose his successor from among his most faithful followers. The king could think of two. He summoned Sher Singh and Ram Das, his two devoted knights. Addressing the former, he said, "Tell me, Sher Singh, if I nominated you as my successor, how would you rule the people?" "Your Majesty," said Sher Singh, "I shall uphold the power and glory of the sovereign. I shall rule the people with an iron hand, and the laws will be imposed with due severity." Turning to Ram Das, the king said, "What about you, Ram Das? What kind of king will you be?" And Ram Das answered, "I shall be a servant of all, Your Majesty. A true king is one who serves his people. The only difference between him and other servants is that he sits on a throne. And so I shall continue to be to the people what I am to you, a devoted servant." You can guess the king's choice. Ram Das was chosen to be the king's successor. My friends, people often quote the saying, "Charity begins at home," and restrict their help and kindness to their near and dear ones. Yes, indeed, charity may begin at home, but it would be a pity if it stays there. I therefore urge you, in the unforgettable words of Sadhu Vaswani, give, give, give. Give not only to those you love, but also to those who do not love you. Give specially to the unfortunate and the deprived. Give to those whom you don't want to give. You will receive much from your giving. You can achieve freedom from fear. Some of you may have heard of Queen Elizabeth of Hungary. She often gave alms to the poor. As she handed money and food to them, she would always say, "I urge you to give alms yourselves." Alas, they would sigh, "How can we give when we don't have enough money?" We cannot all of us open our pocketbooks, it is true, the Queen would reply. But we should never close our hearts. Even if you do not have any money, you do have a heart that can take pity on the needy, eyes to see them, feet to visit them, and words to encourage and comfort them. True, you can give a smile to everyone you meet. You can give a kind word and kind thoughts to your neighbors. You can give appreciation to your colleagues and friends. You can give hope to the hopeless, encouragement to the timid, happiness to all around you, and prayers for the well-being of all humanity. Prophet Muhammad has said, a man's true wealth in the hereafter is the good he does in this world to his fellow men. When he dies, people will ask, what property has he left behind him? But the angels ask, what good deeds has he sent before him? Have you ever seen a blind man walking along the way with a stick in his hand? He keeps on tapping the ground with the stick as he walks. He is not afraid until he comes to a point where he has to cross the road. He hesitates for a while, but he is sure that a helping hand will come and take him across the street. Such is our condition. We are like blind men, groping in the dark, unable to see what is ahead of us. We do not know what will happen to us the next moment, but let us move on in faith, in the assurance that a hand of helpfulness will be stretched forth to us at the right time, and we will be able to make our journey through life without the least fear, without the least difficulty. 7 practical suggestions, I have referred to them in the course of my talk. Practical suggestion number 1, realize once and for all that nothing is as bad as fear itself. Practical suggestion number 2, cultivate the will to be free from fear. Practical suggestion number 3, never forget that fear is a form of atheism. They are all interconnected, so it's very easy to remember them. Practical suggestion number 4, grow in the assurance that to God all things are possible. What is impossible to man is possible for God. Practical suggestion number 5, we have to receive God's power. Therefore, practical suggestion number 5 is learn to relax in God's presence so that you can receive His power. Learn to be relaxed, relaxed at all times. How I wished I could indicate to you a very simple method of relaxation, but my time is already over. Learn to relax, learn to relax, learn to relax. And practical suggestion number 6 is, let us not worry about what we imagine will happen to us tomorrow. Let tomorrow take care of itself. It was Jesus who said, sufficient unto the day are the troubles thereof. And the last practical, the 7th practical suggestion is, go out of your way to bring help and comfort to those that are around you. Help and comfort to others. 7 practical suggestions. Pick up any one of these and make them a part of your life, and you will be abundantly blessed, and you will be led out of fear into fearlessness. I bow down to all of you and seek your blessings, and may the Lord continue to bless every one of you ever increasingly. I thank you.